I'm Austin Lee from Pro Football Focus, and this is the Fantasy Slant. Today I have 5 more trading tips for you that focus on listening and observing the managers in your league. It's fun to get to know your competition, and it's strategic, especially when it comes to trading. So, on draft day, tip number 1 is make sure you pay attention to how other people respond to your draft picks. It feels really good to draft a player and then have the guy sit next to you go, "Oh, you just drafted my guy." Make a little note of that. If you ever want to move on from that player, you might find a great trade partner in the guy that was going to pick him. Also, pay attention to the small compliments you might get for your picks. Chances are that was somebody else's sleeper you just took. Also, in an auction draft, there's an easy way to track this information. Just write down who bid the second highest amount of money on the players you ended up buying. Those are your best trade partners. You drafted these guys so you like them, but you never know how things are going to shake out later in the season. Go back to your notes when you're ready to make a deal, and you'll have a list of trade partners ready to go. Trade tip number 2 is make sure you pay attention to the other manager's biases. We all have biases, but sometimes people will have sort of a soft spot for players on their favorite NFL team and overvalue them. Sometimes people are really attracted to that guy that just had a big game or has high upside, but kind of has a blind spot for their low downside. Also, sometimes people really like veterans or really like rookies. Pay attention to these biases because that'll allow you to custom tailor your trade offers to the people and their favorite players. You'll get a better value that way. Tip number 3 is listen to people talk about their team. People love to talk about their fantasy team, and you may be surprised about what they think their strengths and weaknesses are of their team. If they are really frustrated with a player and the hate has gone a little bit too far, that's a good trade target for you. Take that player off their hands if you think that player is going to make a turnaround. Also, sometimes the way you have to listen is to nonverbal clues. A good trade barometer for me is to pay attention to which players are in another team's starting lineup. If there's a guy on the bench that should be in their starting lineup, that's a trade target. Go after that guy while he's undervalued. Tip number 4 is try to figure out what other people's trade evaluation methods are. Some people have a really systematic way of figuring out whether the offer you just sent them is a good deal for them or not. So, for instance, sometimes I'll get a trade rejection that says, I plugged in this deal into the trade evaluator on our host site and it said that I wasn't getting a positive end of this deal. That kind of response is gold, because then you can continue to plug in a bunch of offers on your end and figure out which deals you could send them that'll show up as positive offers based on their system of evaluation. Sometimes these sites are a little slow to update their projections, and if you're ahead of the curve on the latest news, you could end up getting a good deal. Other times you just have a different outlook in terms of that player's projection than what the system is they're using. It's a good way to find a good trade fit. The last tip number 5, is vulture other people's trades. Now, this is a little bit dangerous and you don't want to hurt your trade reputation, but if you tread lightly and carefully, you can actually end up with a great deal. Sometimes a manager will come to you and talk to you about a deal that they're working on with another person, and they're just not happy with it. I mean, why would they be talking to you about it if it was a good deal? They would have already taken it. So listen to why that deal isn't working for them and see if you can find a way to meet their needs. You'd be surprised at the kind of value you can get in a trade when you're just a little bit better than the other guy's offer. So those are 5 tips for listening and observing in trade negotiations. I hope that these help you land a blockbuster deal and help you win your next championship. For Pro Football Focus, I'm Austin Lee, and this has been the Fantasy Slant.